You know what's louder than a Ferrari engine revving on Fifth Avenue? It's the absolute silence of the man who could buy the entire dealership but prefers that you don't even know his name. I spend my days observing what I call ghost wealth. While the American middle class screams to display status symbols they haven't even paid for yet, the real players in the game are becoming invisible. They've learned Wall Street's most valuable lesson: money gives you options, but anonymity gives you power. I'm Buck, and I've seen fortunes destroyed not by bad investments, but by gossip, lawsuits, and family envy. If you want to be truly rich, you need to learn to be a ghost. Let's understand why your greatest security asset isn't in the bank, but in what you choose not to say. To understand why people feel this almost pathological need to announce success, we need to look at what Carl Jung called the persona. The persona is the mask you wear to negotiate with society. In the United States, the default mask is that of visible prosperity. If you're not displaying it, the system assumes you don't have it, and this is where the trap closes. Picture the typical American suburb. You see your neighbor with an $80,000 SUV in the garage. The shine of the new paint is hypnotic, but what I see with my observer's eye isn't a car, it's a golden chain. This man didn't buy a vehicle. He bought an obligation to maintain an image. He's screaming to the neighborhood that he's successful, but in doing so, he becomes a slave to his own audience. If he loses his job tomorrow, he won't just suffer from the lack of income. He'll suffer from the death of the persona he built. Real wealth, ghost wealth, operates in a different dimension. It doesn't need applause to exist. When you tell people you've made it, you're actually asking permission to feel important. You're transferring the validation of your wealth to the judgment of others. And guess what? The world is a cruel judge. The moment you put that spotlight on yourself, you awaken what's most primitive in others. You stop being a friend, a brother, or a colleague and become an opportunity statistic. You trade your peace of mind for a temporary ego massage, and the price of that trade is a target painted on your back that can never be removed. Let's talk about the shadow. We all have one. It's that part of us that hides our less noble impulses, envy, resentment, and the desire to see the top crumble. When you're discreet, others' shadows remain dormant. You're just another person at the grocery store, a common face in the Starbucks line. But when you decide to shine too bright, you illuminate the mediocrity of those around you. I've seen this happen in cities like Charlotte and Houston 1,000 times. A man receives an inheritance, or his business finally takes off after 10 years of sweat. He's happy. He wants to celebrate. He invites the family to a luxurious dinner, posts a photo of the new house on Instagram, and starts giving high tips. What he thinks he's generating is admiration. What he's actually generating is an army of resentful people. Suddenly, that cousin you hadn't seen in 5 years shows up with a medical emergency that only your money can solve. Your childhood friends start making passive-aggressive jokes about how it must be nice to be you. The waiter, the insurance broker, and even your lawyer start seeing you with a dollar sign on your forehead. In the United States, there's an entire industry of fortune hunters, unscrupulous lawyers who scour social media looking for targets who appear to have deep pockets for lawsuits over any silly accident. When you're a ghost, you're legally invisible. Nobody sues someone who appears to have nothing. Nobody asks to borrow from someone who seems to be in the same boat. Silence isn't just a social choice, it's a cybersecurity strategy for your real life. There's a hidden cost to telling people you're rich, and it's called expectation inflation. If the world knows you have $1 million in the bank, you can no longer be seen in a 10-year-old Ford Focus without people thinking you're going broke or that you're a cheapskate. The persona demands maintenance. Most Americans who achieve wealth for the first time make the mistake of upgrading their lifestyle to match their new mask. They move to a more expensive zip code, where property taxes are triple. They enroll their kids in schools where tuition costs as much as a car. They surround themselves with other people who are also pretending to be wealthy. I, Buck, observed that these people didn't become rich. They just changed cages. They continue working desperately, not to accumulate freedom, but to sustain the scenery they created for others to watch. The ghost rich keeps his cost of living low and his freedom high. He can stop working today because nobody expects anything from him. He has no status to defend. He owns the most valuable thing money can buy in the United States: the power to be irrelevant. I want you to imagine two men living in a city like Seattle or Austin, centers where money flows like rivers. Let's call them Steve and James. Both work in tech, and both recently hit the $2 million net worth mark after selling a startup or receiving an aggressive stock bonus. Observe Steve. Steve is what I call a validation victim. As soon as the money hit his account, he felt an almost physical need to change the reality around him. He bought a house in an upscale neighborhood with an extremely strict homeowners association, the famous HOA. He traded his reliable SUV for a six-figure European sports car. He started posting photos of $300 dinners on Instagram. Steve thinks he's winning. But what he really did was signal to the ecosystem that he's a target. Suddenly, Steve's neighbors don't see him as a new friend, but as someone who needs to maintain the neighborhood standard. Insurance brokers doubled his policy values because they know he can pay. College friends who hadn't spoken to him in a decade start sending messages asking for advice that always end in a loan request. Steve now spends 40% of his life managing the maintenance of his image and dealing with others' expectations. He's rich, but he's not free. Now, observe James. James hit the same $2 million, but James is a ghost rich. He continues living in the same comfortable but discreet house. He continues driving his 5-year-old Toyota. When he goes out with friends, he still splits the pizza bill. Nobody in James's social circle suspects that he'll never need to work a single day again. James has what Steve lost: strategic power. He can observe people without the filter of financial interest. He knows who likes him for his sense of humor and who would be by his side if he were broke. While Steve is a slave to his own ostentation, James is the absolute owner of his time. Buck observes that true wealth isn't what you buy, but what you have the luxury to ignore. There's a practical and very cold reason not to tell anyone you became rich in the United States: the litigation industry. We live in the most litigious country in the world. There are lawyers who make a living hunting what we call deep pockets. If you get involved in a mundane car accident and the other party notices you're driving a luxury car and wearing designer clothes, the value of the lawsuit for emotional damages or back pain rises exponentially. To the legal system, you're not a citizen, you're a human insurance company. When you flaunt wealth, you're inviting the government and legal predators to look at your bank account with a magnifying glass. By keeping your wealth hidden, you create an invisibility shield. You become a poor target. Scammers don't waste time with people who look ordinary. The government focuses its auditing on those who display a lifestyle that doesn't match their tax returns. The ghost rich uses structures like LLCs and trusts so that not even their name appears in public property records. I, Buck, have seen men lose half their wealth in contentious divorces or civil lawsuits simply because they couldn't hold back their ego and needed to prove to the world that they made it. Remember, money that nobody knows you have is the only money nobody can try to take from you with a judicial stroke of the pen. If you're on the path to wealth, or if you've already crossed the finish line, Buck has a sovereignty protocol that I want you to tattoo in your mind. These are the golden rules for living as a ghost in the American system. Rule number 1, the average car rule. In the United States, your car is your biggest billboard. If you want to be invisible, drive something that costs less than 10% of your net worth and doesn't draw attention in a supermarket parking lot. A used pickup truck or a Japanese sedan are the best hiding places for a millionaire. Rule number 2, social media fasting. Stop posting your victories. Validation from strangers on Facebook or Instagram is a cheap drug that costs dearly for your security. Let them think you're just surviving. Rule number 3, the family filter. Never, under any circumstances, announce the exact value of your account to relatives. If you want to help, help silently and sporadically. The moment family knows you're the rich one, you stop being a family member and become their retirement plan. Rule number 4: change your comparison circle. Stop trying to impress people who are trapped in the hamster wheel. Seek the company of those who also value anonymity. You'll discover that the most powerful men I know are those you'll never hear about in the news. Reaching wealth and not telling anyone is the final test of human character. It's the victory of your real self over your social persona. It's understanding that true freedom isn't the power to buy everything, but the power to not need to prove anything to anyone. When you become a ghost in the system, you reclaim ownership of your soul. You can walk anywhere, talk to anyone, and know that the connection is real. You're not a walking dollar sign. You're just a free man, observing the world from the safest place that exists, the shadows of discretion. Stay calm, keep your secret, and protect your dignity. Because at the end of the day, the only opinion that really matters about your wealth is that of the person who stares back at you in the mirror when the lights go out. See you in the next chapter.